Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Salamanders, and I am going to be working on a new build for my pair of northern red salamanders that I'm housing separately currently. I will be using this zoom ed that I got 18 by 18 by 36. It's a Paludarium already. So remember, this is supposed to be a Paludarium. It's the way it comes and advertised. I am using one here for my arboreal salamanders, but this is a relatively dry tank. There's really no water in it, so it's never really been tested for any kind of leaks. Just remember that right now. But I do like these. They're kind of like these skyscraper type of enclosures. And here is one of my juvenile red salamanders is in here. And as you can see, the stand is not big enough, which is going to be the same for the new Paludarium, where that's going to sit, and that is where my larger, more adult northern red salamander is. And so I'm going to be putting them together and emptying those two other tanks. So first thing to do, as usual, is drill the glass, which is always my least favorite part because I'm always worried it's going to break. So check me out in time lapse. Just remember, you don't have to really press down hard. You just kind of let the weight of the drill. A lot of people say that, but it is true. This is why everyone says it. You just take your time. It's not really that quick, but do it. Clean it off. Put some rubbing alcohol, and you get a nice little clean hole. Some people rub it with sandpaper. Mine are usually pretty smooth, so I don't need to do that. But I do clean it with rubbing alcohol and wipe it down. Some smudges that I'll clean later. So next thing here is we are going to measure for the plastic plescolite stuff, which is kind of like that 8 crate light diffuser. This stuff you can buy from Home Depot. Talk about inflation. This stuff is popped. It's like almost doubled in price, which is really annoying. Well, anyways, cut to size, silicone in. I use some GE silicone 1. And I'm using some clamps to hold it in place. Cut out the areas where your bulkheads where the holes are drilled. And you should be good to go. I am going to use some of this insulation board to fill in some space on the bottom. I'm going to kind of stack these pieces up, cut them so I have them on each side. I want to kind of build a little bit of a deeper pocket in the middle where there will be some water and have it build up on either side. And I don't want to just use a ton of rock, so I want to use this just as purely a filler. I'm using this just to sculpt it down a little bit. It's one of these hot knife things, and I'm using the wire, and I just made it like this, not because I'm trying to make it look like rock, but just trying to make it a little bit more smooth, to build up rock and foam around, just because I don't want it to be super heavy. And so I'm just going to kind of silicone these in at the bottom. I'm also using a heat gun to just kind of tighten it up and get some of these boards to stick to each other, which it does. It's fine. Burned a little bit of a hole here by accident, but whatever, it's all good. Again, this is not for aesthetics. This is just to really take up space and fill a little bit more space. So like, as you can see, I just siliconed it in, put in some more 8 crate diffuser for any of the rocks that might be there, just to disperse the weight a little more evenly. And I am in time lapse now, starting from the top with a hardscape, using some cork bark pieces. I'd like to use something a little bit more native to the area, but this stuff just works so well. I like it. Kind of looks like it could have come from anywhere. But I'm going to use this to start to create some structure at the top. And I put the bulkhead in here in one of the elbows. What I'm doing is I've also foamed in this PVC where I'm going to have sorry, trying to show the bulkhead under there, kind of a bad shot, but where I'm going to run a hose down there to kind of create a waterfall of sorts, but not a drip wall or anything. I want it to be controlled, so I was able to put a vinyl tube in there and hook it up to the 90-degree barb there. I'm also going to use these net pots. I haven't used them in a really long time, but I want to plant some ferns, so I'm going to use these in the construction of this. And as you can see, I'm just kind of skipping along a little bit, been foaming stuff in. I always put paper towels in to around when you foam it, because you don't want the foam to kind of creep through the sides. And then you can just drill out the bottom so water can drain, which is pretty simple. But as you can see, I have a lot of carving I have to do. I've been carving with both a wire brush drill bit and also with a razor blade, and it is taking forever, which stinks. But it's just part of it. Here's me using the wire brush drill bit a little bit. Just the stuff just gets everywhere. It's a pain. And then you know what? So then you got to vacuum it up, and then just kind of just kind of just keep going. Really is the way to do this. And sometimes you'll notice that there's a bare spot and you have to foam it more and wait for it to cure again, and then you've got to cut it back down, and so it's just kind of a pain. And then I'm just going to put the GE Silicone 1, and I'm going to use a little paintbrush here, and I'm going to just kind of smooth it all out so I can start putting some Reptisoil, which is mainly it's peat moss and some other stuff, but it's a darker color than the cocoa fiber, and I like the way it looks. It looks more like soil, and it's, I think, a little bit easier for things to grow on it than just cocoa fiber. So I'm just patting that stuff down, and as you can see, I skipped ahead because it was a lot, and I have moved it back onto that stand where the other Mossarium used to be, where I had the juvenile red salamander. And as you can see, there's still a lot of background that needs to go. Another thing I didn't mention before is that I have this air stone here in a tube, and I have another piece of PVC that I didn't show you before. It comes out at the top, and on these Paludariums there's little parts at the top where the lid goes, where you can kind of snap that in. You can kind of see it there, so it kind of holds it in place, but you can still get the lid on nice and snug. And so and that's the air thing, the little air pump, just to keep I really want this to be aerated. A key thing for these animals is that the water is really clean. So put a little plumber's tape on these things. These are just for the bulkheads and the 90-degree barbs to attach the tubing to. Just kind of put it in there. And I'm going to go and I'm going to put these on, and then I'm going to put this low-profile strainer on as well, which I ordered. All these pieces except the barbs came from I think it's Lifeguard Aquatics. I just ordered them on Amazon. Some people have asked that, and I like these strainers. They're really good. They're pretty fine, so nothing, it doesn't really hurt the animals. It's not too powerful, nice and snug. Doesn't need to be too tight. Excuse me, too tight. And as you can see, that's kind of how it is, and that plumber's tape will usually create that seal there. So this is what it looks like. I'm starting to put some sphagnum moss, some damp sphagnum moss in spots that are sparse, or maybe I missed with the foam or the Reptisoil. And also, I just want to create growing mediums for plants and moss and liverworts, or whatever I'm going to end up putting in here. So now I'm going to start a little bit with substrate on the bottom, just to fill in some of the voids, because the salamanders will crawl into the most tiny places, and I can't see them, and that's fine if I can't see them, but sometimes if I need to get to them, if there's something wrong, I don't want them dying back in some weird spot. So you got to kind of cover things up. You want to give them hides, but at the same time, remember, we're keeping them in a glass box, so we have to be responsible and be able to get to them if we need to. So I'm just filling in some spots with some aquarium sand. It's kind of putting it in certain areas and just filling little voids and things like that, just kind of behind this insulation board. Again, just so there's no weird spot where the salamanders can get to. And I'm just filling in some other areas too that you weren't seeing there on the camera, but there's quite a lot. Also, if you notice, I have some black foam in some of these spots to try to keep it, sealed off as well. I apologize for the angles here. I'm just filming this in time lapse. This is an extremely tight space, so it's really difficult to try to get a good shot of this. But this is the best I can do to try to show you. But I'm just foaming some rocks in around some of the sand that I put in. I'm just kind of being strategic about where I place the rocks. I want it to kind of look natural. It doesn't really look natural right now, but as you build them up, it does start to look more natural. And so I'm also squeezing in some filter foam here and there instead of sand, as you can see. I'm squeezing that down into cracks in the rocks too. Again, I don't want a salamander in a spot that I would have to literally destroy the tank, which has unfortunately happened before, so I'm learning from my mistakes. But just going ahead and kind of creating these little banks on either side here with the rocks. I'm using the Great Stuff Pond and Stone like I usually do, just because it's, it's created for water. That's the purpose of it, and it is a pain, so be careful if you get it on your skin. It is really annoying to get off, because I got some on my skin this time, and it was annoying. I had to use Gooby on to get it off, and that makes you stink. That stuff's chemicals, gross, and avoid it if you can, so wear gloves and other things, and just take precaution. Just vacuuming out some debris from cutting foam and from some of the other loose substrate that's in here. I'm just trying to stay nice and tidy as I kind of go. And just fill it in as you think, it makes sense, or how you think it looks. And this is kind of what I was left with after doing that. Again, still have a lot of background to do, but I like the way it's built up on the sides. And as you can see, that flat rock on the top right there, that's where the water is going to come out. I'm going to try to zoom all the way in here so you can see that little gap there. That's where water is going to come out from that vinyl tube all the way from the top of the tank. And so, not really sure. I haven't tested this, which was stupid, but for a water test, I was just kind of trying to do this quickly, but do a water test first if you can. Let's just put it like that, because it's smart to do that, believe me, as opposed to doing all this work like I'm doing right now and then finding out later that it might leak. And these are just the net pots here. I'm going to end up stuffing some damp sphagnum moss down there. And I have foamed in some stuff here, as you can see, some more driftwood from the mossarium, and some other wood, some driftwood right there. And I've also got some of the water wicking mesh stuff for moss and liverworts to grow off of. But I put this branch in. I really like this one. This one's solid. I got that from the mountains. It was sitting out in the sun for a year. It's just, as you can see, I cut some of the wood on it, and it is in good shape. So really like that branch in addition to the cork bark. I'm also going to use a little bit of fluval stratum, which is like aqua soil or whatever you want to call it, just to give it a little bit more of a nutrient-based substrate. I'm not even going to plant anything down there, but I don't want it to be all sand. Otherwise, you can get that brown algae stuff, the diatoms, which is really annoying. So, and then on top of it, I am going to use this Seachem fluorite. I wanted to get the dark one, but I couldn't find it, so I'm just using the normal Seachem fluorite. And this is mainly like clay, like calcite, or I don't, it's like a clay, but I like this stuff. It's really solid. So I'm going to use this as the base layer, really, to mix with the stratum. And then I'm probably going to put some sand over that. And I'm just going to kind of evenly distribute it out so everything is covered, but then I'm going to build up on both the left and the right sides. And that's kind of what you're left with. It's kind of built up a little bit on either side, but covering everything, which it looks weird because it's like this kind of orangey red color and doesn't really go with anything. But after you put in the sand, it doesn't look like that at all, and because you can't see it. But then I've got I put some more rocks and boulders in here that from the mountains that I scrubbed, and so yeah, I mean, hardscape is looking pretty good. I'm going to keep adding to it here, but this is kind of what I've been envisioning. I didn't end up using this branch you see there now that I have up there. It just didn't fit. It's just too hard. And there's this damp sphagnum moss I put in for the ferns I'm going to put in there. And by the way, the ferns are just from my yard where I live. They usually do pretty well. They might die off at first, but then they typically come back, and they're usually good in these types of setups. As you can see also in the substrate at the bottom, I've added a lot of stream pebbles and stream stones from streams. It's mainly shale from up in my house in the mountains. And then you can see here the lid I covered with plastic, used duct tape, and I also installed a Mist King. I want to have 80% of the top covered to create humidity, but leave the few inches there where the Mist King is, because it will be it'll help keep the glass completely from fogging over. Here are some of the ferns I added. I added 3 kind of pockets of them, 2 into the net pots and 1 into the middle. A little moss here and there too. But I like the way this looks. I think it's pretty legit. As you can see, I got into a lot of corners here where there was other just kind of bare spots, and the fern should help cover all that stuff up. You probably couldn't even tell where it was because I covered it up so well. But yeah, it's I'm gonna try to put some more moss and some liverworts in here, and also attach stuff to that water wicking mesh I just pointed to. I've used it in the past and it's worked, but here's something interesting. I'm going to use these liverworts down here because I've noticed that they grow slower in the shade than they do if I put them all the way at the top. And there's some liverworts there too, but sometimes they can just grow out of control, and then I have to cut them, and sometimes they just die. So I want it to kind of grow slow and just normally kind of in the shade like they would in the wild. And I'm just adding more moss here. I'm using super glue here and there too, which is annoying. I get that garbage on my hand and it's a pain to get off. I have to use like a razor blade to get it off. But just adding moss to some of the branches and some of the other cork bark. Just trying to make it look realistic. This is actually one of the most fun parts for me. So this is kind of what I'm starting to end up with, and I like it. I don't like how the sides are kind of all just the reptisoil, but over time the moss and plants will kind of grow all over it. And I'm not done either, but I'm 90% of the way there. I may add some more stuff here and there to this, but this is kind of what I was envisioning for these guys. I wanted them to have the water in case they breed, but I also want them to have spots that they can crawl up on and hide. I've noticed that the red salamanders, even though normally in the wild you find them on the ground, I noticed in my tanks they'll crawl all over the place. I mean, obviously because of the reduced real estate and floor plan, but I wanted to give them spots that they could kind of crawl up into and hide, and have little areas of seclusion so they can kind of stay away from each other too, but have enough space. And so yeah, it's kind of just a trial and error. And, again, you want to have hides for your animals, but you don't want to have it where you can't get to them either. So this is just a close-up here of some of the moss. There's actually springtails already in it. You can see that one there in the upper right. And I put some more temperate springtails in here, but there was a decent amount of springtails in my moss colony. There's a springtail right there in the middle, and so I have wild springtails too, which is great. I love them. And so I'm sure there's some other hitchhikers in here as well, but I'm all good with that. So overall, looking pretty good. Really, really like this. Well, remember I told you that always to water test things? Well, this thing, not for me drilling it, but this thing was just leaking on its own. Water was coming up. I think there was I'm pretty sure it's that little crack right there in that black silicone. It was literally coming out, and for about a week, I had to re-silicone and try to stop it. And this is a week later, and it is now watertight and working, as you can see. Mind the dirty glass. I have to wipe it down. But this is what it looks like. I've got the air stone, as you can see in the back right, and a little waterfall. It's not splashing anything in the front, and I've got this kind of canopy up here of moss and branches. And I kind of want this to be like an overhang, like you would see on an embankment, where there'd be like a mountain seep. And so, again, just really, really think that this turned out well, better than I could have thought of, especially after the leak. So just remember, and again, I don't know much about Zoom Ed stuff, but this is the first one that I've actually tried to see that it holds water. I have some exoterras, I haven't had that problem, and some other normal aquariums. Again, it could have just been a freak thing where the silicone pulled apart, but just always be careful. And better to check at the beginning. But water is coming out nicely here. I like it. I think it's going to create nice flow and circulation down there and keep the water nice and aerated in addition to the air stone. But overall, I think this is great. You know, I want to watch some of this stuff grow in. I don't want to completely overdo it with moss and other things, but it will, I think, turn out really nicely for these animals, and really excited to kind of see how they do together. One is bigger than the other one, but not big enough to eat him, I don't think. So I will be really excited to see that. But I really appreciate all of you tuning into this. It's been a little while since I posted last. It's been really difficult. I've been really busy at work and just with life. But I've got 2 open containers now, and open containers, not the beer that I'm drinking right now, but the 2 open enclosures that I have. So I am excited to clean those out and plan 2 new builds. And I will keep you all in the loop on that, and we'll be hopefully posting on those again soon. And again, please, if you enjoy this, tell your friends or anyone else you think might be interested. I really want to grow the channel and can kind of be able to continue this, and I can't do it without your support. So please subscribe, like, comment. I really appreciate everything, and I really look forward to the next couple of builds. And thanks a lot, and we'll see everyone soon.